Let's start, however, with the battle over the Bush tax cuts. Congressman John Culberson is a Republican from Texas. Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez is a California Democrat. Congressman Culberson, here it is. I'm handing you the Sharpie. I'm asking you to draw a line in the sand. At what level should those tax breaks end?
Well, Michael, I think the premise of your question is misplaced, because how can we compromise on letting people keep their own money? We're talking about a vote to prevent the biggest tax increase in American history. This is not a vote to preserve anybody's tax cut. This is a vote to protect Americans' right to keep their own money. We don't want anyone's taxes going up. It's a terrible idea in a recession to increase taxes on anybody at any level. So, but first and foremost, this isn't the government's money to compromise on how much we get to keep. It's our money, and the government's got no right to it. Liberals' presumption is that all of our money belongs to the government, and I just fundamentally reject that premise to your question, Michael.
I keep reading, Congressman, that it'll be a $700 billion loss over the span of a decade if, for those upper 2%, the tax cuts are indeed extended. From your chuckle there, I take it you don't buy into that number.
No, because we as fiscal conservatives, we as constitutional conservatives, Michael, understand, first of all, the money in this country belongs to we the people. It doesn't belong to the government. And the wealth that is created by we the people, who invest it, save it, and use it to create jobs and grow the economy. So your presumption is that we are, as a government, going to allow a certain segment of society to keep more of their own money. I just reject the premise.
But if I carry your logic to its conclusion, and listen, I'd be thrilled if we could do this and sustain our military and our basic services. If I carry your logic to its conclusion, I'm keeping all the money in my pocket. Surely, at some point, the government has got to have a piece of it to keep the whole thing flowing. Let me ask Congresswoman Sanchez if she will take my bait. Where would you draw that line?
Well, first of all, I find it interesting that the Republicans campaigned on bringing down the deficit, and yet they want to increase it by $700 billion. The reality is that we need to pay down some of our debt, and one of the ways to do that is not to continue some of these tax cuts, in particular for the wealthy. They would argue, and some people do, that that this will not help to create jobs. Well, some of us have said, listen, let's help the middle class and continue to keep tax cuts in for them, and let's make sure that the capital gains tax is at 15%, that we continue that. And that will actually help people to decide to invest in businesses, to decide to put their money into play, to create jobs, etc. But this whole idea that somehow they ran on bringing down the debt, the way you pay down the debt is you have to have money to do that. You have to have a revenue source to pay down the debt.
Congresswoman, are you prepared to compromise on the extension for those upper wage earners? I ask that question because White House senior advisor David Axelrod on Meet the Press seemed awfully hesitant to use the C word, compromise. Let's all listen, and you can react first.
These taxes, the way the Bush tax cuts were designed, are going to expire on January 1st. We want people to have the certainty of knowing that's not going to happen. And Congress ought to, before they go on vacation, they ought to ensure that people have better vacations of their own by knowing that this matter has been taken care of. So we're going to work hard to do that.
Bottom line, he's open to compromise. Is that fair?
The bottom line is he wants to sit down and talk about this, but
is he open to compromise?
There's no bend on the permanent extension of tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans.
He's open to compromise.
He wants to sit down. We want to get this done. The American people expect to get this done, and we are eager to sit down and talk about how to move forward.
Congresswoman Sanchez, are you open to compromise for the wealthiest of Americans?
Well, I believe I just told you that I am for a 15% capital gains tax to continue. So that would be part of it. And why?
But how about on the 2%? How about on those 2% over $250,000?
Well, a lot of that capital gains tax is in people's hands to move it, to be able to move it into places. So that will occur for them. They will not pay as much tax. But to say that you're just going to give it on the regular income earned by them, I think that would be wrong, because we're talking about $700 billion.
Congressman Culberson, who are these 2%? Because I hear Republicans say that they are small business people. I hear Democrats say that they are millionaires and billionaires. Are they small business people who are millionaires by virtue of their small businesses? Define this group that we keep kicking around and talking about.
Well, the category that President Obama and the Democrats keep referring to are small business owners, primarily, the people who create jobs in this country. But secondly, Michael, I think it's vital to point out, my colleague just said that that's $700 billion we're talking about taking away from the government. No. That's $700 billion in tax increases that will happen January 1st unless this Congress votes to prevent it. That's $700 billion additional dollars that Americans will not have to spend or invest or save. So it's vital that we, and if you want to look for $700 billion, conservatives look at this as if you want to save the government money, you cut spending. We need to cut spending, and I can identify, Loretta, I can identify $700 billion for you, $600 billion right out of the gate.
And I can tell you, at $8 billion a month, let's get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. At $8 billion a month, let's get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to hear those words out of your mouth, because that's what we're talking about here.
Loretta, I'm committed to balancing this budget, getting us back on track towards a balanced budget. Cutting taxes and cutting spending is the best way to grow this economy and allow individual Americans to keep and save more and spend more of their own money. We need to cut spending first, stop any tax increase from taking effect January 1st. That's what the country just voted for.
Senator Schumer. If I may just ask this, Congresswoman, let me just ask about Senator Schumer's proposal today. Congressman Culberson, Senator Schumer today put on the table this prospect of drawing the line at $1 million, extending for income below the $1 million mark. Is that something that you could live with?
Again, Michael, no constitutional conservative, no fiscal conservative is going to accept the premise that we're going to allow anyone's taxes to go up on January 1st in a recession. And we're in a very deep and dangerous recession. The country just decisively rejected liberal tax and spend policies of Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama. And we have a mandate from the country to cut spending, to cut taxes, to protect this economy and get the nation back on track towards a balanced budget, which is the best way to assure long-term prosperity.
Go ahead, Congresswoman Sanchez.
Michael, I would like some time, please.
Go ahead, absolutely.
First of all, you know, $700 billion. We have to find those cuts. Like I said, $8 billion of that, a majority of Americans want to get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. That would save us $8 billion a month. Over a year, we could pay for what we're talking about here. But no, my colleague wants it both ways. He wants to spend. Oh, he wants to spend on defense. He wants to spend on Afghanistan. He wants to put money in pockets of people who are halfway around the world. And he wants to cut services to the poor here. He wants to cut services to people that need preschool. He wants to cut services to people who have cancer and have no way to get well. So he wants to have it both ways. He
Loretta,
wants to give the rich all kind of money, but if he doesn't want to cut in all places, no, there's just particular places. This
Loretta,
is what America has to understand.
Go ahead, Congressman Culberson. The floor is yours again.
I never said any of those things. Loretta, you're undermining your own position. I said that we as constitutional conservatives will first and foremost honor the Constitution, work to get this government back within the confines of the Constitution as the founders intended, and to get the economy growing, Loretta, I said we have to dramatically cut spending, we need to cut taxes, and we need to make sure that no one's taxes increase on January 1st. And let's be clear, the biggest tax increase in American history is scheduled to take place automatically on January 1st. And this liberal Congress, it's irresponsible for Speaker Pelosi to have allowed it to go this long, for this president and this Congress to have injected this much uncertainty into the economy.
Disagree with you.
Well, Loretta, it's November.
Go ahead, Congresswoman.
This economy happened because of George Bush and a Congress dominated by the Republicans in the early portion, the first 6 years of his administration. You, the Republicans, were the ones that got us into this deficit and this debt position. You were also the ones that promised everybody a tax cut. So what did you do? You didn't make it permanent because that would cost too much money. No. You promised everybody just a little piece here. You get a little piece of that. You get a little piece of that.
Unfortunately, I have to call time.
If I could, the country,
Congresswoman Sanchez, Congressman Culberson, may I just say, as sort of the impartial observer, I'm one who's been fearful of gridlock coming for the next 2 years, given the climate in Washington, and all this segment is doing is reinforcing my concern.
No, not at all, Michael.
That's where we're
not
headed.
At all.
We'll take just 10 seconds, and then I'll give it to Congresswoman Sanchez. Your 10 seconds. Go ahead, sir.
The country just decisively rejected what Loretta Sanchez has just said, the good common sense of the American people and their instinctive desire to control the size, cost, and power of the federal government and to keep the government out of our pockets and grow the economy by letting us keep our own money. The country just endorsed that approach of the Republican Congress, and you will see the House of Representatives.
Congresswoman, go ahead. Your 10 seconds. Go.
It was the Republican-controlled Congress and George Bush in the White House that put this debt into place. And now we, the Democrats, have been working to try to get this debt down in an economy that they wrecked. Because I'll remind you that before George Bush came in, we were running surpluses when he came in, and Clinton, under President Clinton, we had 8 years
Congresswoman,
of the
I'm out of time.
best economy we had ever seen.
Respectfully, I'm out of time. Thank you, Congressman John Culberson. Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, appreciate the passion.